us today. Again, my name is Aaron, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Nate VanKouwenberg. Now, Nate is a physical education teacher and strength and conditioning coach in the Victor Central School District in New York. Using his experience developing Victor's K through 12 functional strength training curriculum, he has created a comprehensive professional development workshop for teachers, coaches, athletics directors, and college students, and compiled much of that information into his book that we're going to talk about today, Functional Strength Training for Physical Education. He has presented at countless conferences and school districts over the years to improve the quality of physical education fitness units and high school strength and conditioning programs. In addition to that, he is the founder and owner of Next Level Strength and Conditioning in Rochester, New York. And he also served as the strength and conditioning coach for Rochester Institute of Technology Division I men's hockey program for 8 seasons, I believe. So looking forward to hearing all of his insight. Welcome again, Nate, and thank you so much for taking some time to talk about this important topic.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat.
All right, so I gave a brief bio for the listeners, but for a bit more perspective, can you kind of explain, like, how did this all come about? What's the story behind why you became a teacher and why you were interested in strength, being a strength coach?
Yeah. So I went to Brockport State University up here in upstate New York, and I went for phys ed, initially thinking I was going to go into administration, like as an AD. Okay. And about halfway through my time at Brockport, I played hockey there. Started to switch from some of the more traditional training methods to some of the more progressive things out there, and saw a huge improvement in my own play and my own athleticism, and really started to switch gears to realizing I really want to do something with strength conditioning and sport performance, as well as potentially PE. So from there, loaded up my schedule with a dual major, and realized that I was going to continue to teach, but when I was teaching, I could obviously still do strength conditioning on the side, holidays and summers and things like that. And what started as just training a few high school kids here and there grew into something much more substantial with what we have with Next Level Strength Conditioning today. So again, my background in strength conditioning over the last 20 years is everything from working with middle school and high school age kids all the way up through the Division I and professional levels, like you said. So have a pretty unique experience level in both PE and strength conditioning. And then through my time at Victor, which is an amazing PE program, I walked into a great situation there. Still, despite them being a nationally recognized PE program, some of the things that they were doing from a fitness and specifically strength training situation was a bit outdated. So okay. I kind of took the lead on updating some things we were doing there using my experience. And fast forward 15 years later, we are where we are today.
All right, you have a ton of experience in this, obviously, like we just talked about. But I guess the big question, we'll go ahead and start with the big question: why functional strength training, and maybe what is it that you've seen over the years that makes this so important specifically for this population?
Yeah, so again, going back to kind of my experience with strength training before I knew some of the things that I know today. Training to be a hockey player when I was coming up, it was I'm going to go to the gym on my own. I'm going to do each body part split up separately. I'm going to go for a long distance run to stay in shape, and hopefully that's enough. And realizing at the higher levels, I was actually going backwards. I was feeling slower on the ice. I was, suffering minor injuries here and there. And again, being exposed to more functional types of training methods, I realized that we should be training the body the way that the body moves in real life, regardless of what that is, based on someone's experience, based on their interests and their goals. So from firsthand experience, realizing that training the body, multiple muscle groups at once, simultaneously, realistic movement patterns, sprinting if I want to get faster, conditioning and more interval-based methods is much more realistic to what we actually want to get out of the training, not just walking through the gym and saying that we did our workout for the day. So again, functional strength training in my eyes, it's training that serves a purpose.
Okay.
And what that purpose is based on the person. But whether it's they're an athlete, they want to perform better in their sport and reduce the risk of injury, or it's someone that just wants to be more durable for whatever life throws at them. Our body moves with multiple muscle groups at once in realistic patterns. So some of those old school training methods of splitting up into individualized muscle groups, it's definitely better than doing nothing. Strength is very important regardless of the population. But if we're going to take that time to spend, why not get the most out of our time and the best bang for our buck? And again, through years and years and years of a lot of people seeing the benefits, this is a no-brainer.
So what are some of the things that you've noticed over the years, maybe when you took over the program there, maybe talking to teachers or strength coaches at other schools, that you have kind of had to work through to change? I know you mentioned some of the isolation exercises that people might be teaching or training, but what are some of those things that you have had to change over time?
Yeah. And the first thing is misconceptions, right? Like a lot of people don't know what's best for them. The good thing about machines and isolation-based strength training is it takes very little skill. It takes very little teaching. It's basically, here's the machine. It's going to do half of the work for you. You can throw kids on it and they're kind of on their way. But again, looking at what's best for that person, regardless of what they do on their own time, we can obviously say now that realistic functional movements, using free weights, so our body has to coordinate through those movements on our own and have all of those additional benefits, is what's best. So step one is always going to be selling to the person that you're talking to that this is really what's best for them. And the first section of the book really does kind of goes through all of those potential hurdles. It's first of all, everybody needs strength. So regardless of what type of strength training, like every single person from younger kids all the way up through elderly populations, we need strength to be more durable and all of these general fitness benefits. And that's proven too. Like they've connected grip strength to longevity potentially being a better indicator than blood pressure. So these are all proven research-based things that are out there now, which is a win for people that agree that strength is most important for everybody. So now we want to sell that strength is important because we all know the misconceptions of, whether it's kids, whether it's certain genders where it's, hey, I don't want to strength train because I'm going to get big and bulky and I'm going to lose flexibility and I don't want to be a musclehead or whatever the case may be. And we know that that's not the case. So first one is selling why strength is important. And then step two is educating what types of strength training methods are out there. So there is isolation machine-based strength training. There is functional strength training. There's powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit, and things like that. And what are the differences so people can really choose what they think is best for them? And most populations, unless you're a bodybuilder, unless you are trying to be a competitive weightlifter, Olympic, weightlifter or a powerlifter or a competitive CrossFit athlete, it's general functional strength training is going to check a lot of those boxes that most people are trying to get out of a workout. So that's the next step, is like you're really trying to sell to people that functional strength training is beneficial for most people based on their goals. And then the other piece is, okay, now what exercises do I do? How many reps should I do? How much weight should I use? How do I perform these skills correctly? Because again, I'm not just stepping on a machine. So there is much more of a buy-in barrier, I would say, to be doing this stuff independently on your own time. But the good news is us as physical educators, we're mandated to see almost every kid in the country and beyond, right? So that whole excuse as like, hey, I'm really not sure what to do, or I don't know how to do it. Like, if we're doing our job, that should be out the window. Like, our goal as physical educators is to figure out what is best for our kids and then teach them how to do it on their own time. It's not just to get kids active while they're under our supervision. It's really to build lifelong learners and active adults. And it's not just, like I said, taking a lap around the fitness center. It's how am I going to get the very most out of my time there? So before we even talk about exercises, reps, all of those things, it's why should everyone strength train? And then from there, what's the most beneficial form of strength training for the individual we're talking to?
I think a couple of things that you mentioned there stand out to me. It, especially the long-term benefits of that. Now, I don't work in a high school, but I work in the private sector, and one of the I guess most I guess gratifying things that I can see about what I'm able to do in working with a lot of the athletes is that not all of them are going to go on and play in college. They might even cut their careers short while they're in high school, but a lot of them pick up good habits. I know that they're doing the exercises correctly. And then just to see them, continue to exercise and maintain those habits long after they're out of high school, I think that's so important. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So what kind of examples have you seen specifically to that in your experience?
Yeah. So, and again, it's all about who you're selling to, right? And people kind of get confused when I say you have to sell, 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 sell. But if you're out here giving your very best lesson and teaching all these awesome skills and giving these demos, but the kid doesn't believe that's going to help them on their own time, you're wasting your breath. Like, they might get a great workout during that time, but most PE teachers only see their kids a couple days a week. Like, I see my kids 2 days a week for 60 minutes. We know kids need to be active every day for 60 minutes. So really, our true goal is to get them active on their own time. So if I'm selling to a kid, we're speaking student, we're speaking athlete, and a lot of the times our kids are athletes. So it's like, okay, who wants to jump higher, sprint faster, be stronger in their sport? And that's obviously a no-brainer. But then also, we know that in the PE setting, that it's not like the private sector. People aren't paying to be there. Some kids could care less how fast they are or how high they can jump. Right. So then we have to tap into what they care about, right? So again, the benefits exclusive to functional strength training are endless. So we can talk about, okay, you don't play a sport, but who does martial arts? Who does gymnastics? Who dances? Who figure skates? Who, snowboards, skis, and all of those different things also require a lot of the performance-based benefits that they're going to get from these basic functional strength training exercises. And then from a general health and standpoint, we also know that functional strength training is going to help a great deal with confidence, right? Like, I've never seen a middle school or a high school kid bang out a really good machine curl and like be really excited about it, but I've seen kids do their first chin up, and the look on their face, what that does for their confidence is really cool. And that goes way beyond the weight room or the fitness center. Like, that carries into the hallways with them, that carries into their everyday life. So especially with what our kids are dealing with now, if we can pump a little self-esteem and confidence in that way, that's a huge benefit as well.
Such a huge aspect, especially for that population. Now, I want to go a slightly different direction now. And one of the things that I love about this book, is the way you set it up, is that you don't have to be certified in order to be able to correctly implement a lot of this into a physical education program. Now, a lot of people are teachers. Not everyone goes the strength training route, but they are teachers. So I guess, how important was that to you in kind of relaying that message? Like you said, you don't have to be certified, but there are certain fundamentals and concepts that you should follow in order to implement this.
Yeah, and over my time, over the past several years presenting this at conferences in the districts, I've heard every single excuse in the book. And a lot of it comes down to, I don't know how to do this. I'm not a certified strength coach like you. We don't have the facilities or the money that you do for this kind of stuff. And in the book, I've outlined every excuse I've heard and how to completely negate it and smash it. So that's not a factor anymore. And when it comes to the whole I have to be a certified strength conditioning coach thing, that's not the case at all. What the book does is really outline everything you need to know to make sure that what you are teaching your kids and what you are putting in action is appropriate and safe. Because we've seen people go the other way, where they try to do this stuff, it just isn't appropriate for that population, potentially even be dangerous. So I already did that work for you. But when it comes to actually teaching the skills themselves, like, these are ground floor variations. These are not some of the complex movements that we do with our high school, college, and pro athletes. We're talking about very fundamental variations of these different functional movement patterns. But again, every single thing there is that they would need is outlined from what's the progression of the skill, what are the external skill cues that they can use. And what Human Kinetics did is it's really cool. It's called HK Propel, where there's an online resource with every book comes with an online code, with a library of not just every skill cue, every checklist, all of these sample programs, but also videos of me teaching the skill, having a student demonstrate, where a big barrier we were finding is that teachers didn't feel comfortable demonstrating these skills. They believed it was important. They wanted to start implementing it, but they didn't feel comfortable demonstrating. So let me do it, and I'll do it for you. So you can, it's 2025, play the video. Let me go through the skill cues. There's someone there demonstrating it properly for your students. So again, the work is done, where you don't need to develop this model from scratch. That's already done. There are a lot of different variations based on each unique logistical situation, district to district, but all of those are outlined as well. So really all you need to do is put it in action. And then if you don't feel comfortable demonstrating it, I can do it for you. So again, just trying to get rid of as many of those excuses as possible so that our kids really do start to get exposed to what's best for them.
I think that's awesome because, I mean, I know a lot of situations specifically too that like you give them you give the teachers the benefit of the doubt, but they're just working off of their knowledge base and what they've done. So yeah, I'm already impressed with what I've seen from this book and how easy you make it to just kind of implement all this into their program.
Appreciate that.
So one of the other things I wanted to touch on a little bit, because you do talk about structure and how to structure everything. One of the things that I see as a possible hurdle might be time, just because when I'm working with this population, I have an hour or more, but I know PE programs aren't set up to have that much time. So what kind of tips would you give someone that's working within a small time constraint?
Yeah, and every district has its own logistical challenges, and I've been through it too, so I know what that's like. So I'm not sitting here saying that everything should be perfect and you just make it happen. But really, if you're doing something, if you're introducing these skills in some way, that's a win, right? So instead of saying, hey, I don't have much time, I don't have much equipment, I don't have much space, I've never done this before, let's just throw them on machines. Like, it's kind of an easy cop out. But if I can say, hey, I'm going to teach one skill each day and then potentially have the rest of the time be maybe a guided workout or stations or whatever the case may be, that's great. And again, in the book, there is very detailed sequential curriculum maps, K-12, and a lot of different options that districts can implement based on their logistics. It doesn't need to be that, right? So it took me and my colleagues at Victor 10 years to put this in place. And it's not realistic to say you're going to do this overnight with this resource. But if you go from doing only machine-based isolation training to implementing a few functional exercises each year and exposing them to that, teaching them how to use proper form, and really starting to sell the benefits to this that goes beyond what you could get from being on a machine using one muscle group at a time, that's a win. And then as kids start to become more comfortable, and as teachers that may have some doubts start to see it in action, walls get broken down and the implementation becomes much easier, but it's definitely not an overnight process. So again, if you had 40 minutes in a PE class, that's plenty of time to get things done. Despite 5-7 minutes of transition, kids coming in, an introductory set where I'm talking about the importance, reviewing what we've done before, a warm-up, you have time to introduce and practice a new skill. Take 10, 12, 15 minutes to do that, and then potentially even have 10 minutes at the end for a guided workout, stations, even potentially some free time, as long as there are guidelines in place to make sure it's what's best for the kids. But I do not see time as being a limiting factor, even if teachers have 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay, great. And I know you touched on it a little bit there, but And I do highly encourage everyone to get a copy of this book here. It's so informative. But for people listening right now, what are some maybe tools and strategies some teachers or coaches can take away from this conversation today to go ahead and start implementing?
Yeah. So again, it's about starting with something.
Okay.
And if you take on the task of, I'm going to go from not doing anything to a full sequential functional strength training curriculum the next year, it's probably not going to, go too well, So it's about plugging in little things and have it be more of a slow cook implementation. But from there, it's about make sure that whatever skills you're teaching are developmentally appropriate and based on what they've learned in the past. So just like any other unit, we use progressions. I'm not going to teach the butterfly stroke before the elementary backstroke. Like, we use progressions and everything else. So sometimes people miss the mark where they'll get too advanced too soon, and then things can go wrong there as well. So start with basic progressions, just like any other unit, and start by plugging away at different movement patterns and introducing these things to the kids, and never skipping on the why this is important for you and why you should do it on your own time. And then as you go along, how can I start to make things a little bit more sequential? And what I mean by that is, a curriculum map, sometimes people get turned off by the term curriculum or assessment, or there are certain things that people really don't want to be a part of. And all I'm saying is, if there's some type of a guideline as to, through the student's time in PE, whether it's K-12, whether it's 6-12 or 7-12, based on how your school's set up, if I know, let's say as a 9th grade teacher, what skills they already were exposed to, and I know what they're going to be exposed to when in the next step, later in high school, my job is just to connect the dots. So it's not like this crazy complex document that people need a master's degree to read. It's basically an outline. Like, here's the movement pattern, here's our progression. They're going to be exposed to this skill in this time frame, this skill in this time frame, and this skill in this time frame, so that when they graduate and that they're done with us, they have a really good toolbox of skills that they can perform on their own time. They know what to do and how to do it and why they're doing it, so they hopefully are consistent and see the lifelong benefits to it. But again, it's if you want to get more complex, again, it is all outlined in the book, from how to create a K-12 sequential curriculum map. There's templates, there are different variations that you can choose from. So it's really based on, where are you now? What's the realistic next step, and then where do you want to be down the road?
Great. I would say well said. Easy to understand in that way, and just kind of working through progressions and making sure you're doing it safely. That all makes complete sense. When I was trying to think about a way to describe this book, one of the first things that came to mind is that it's very thorough, but not overwhelming or over complicated. So that is really easy for everyone to understand. So
yeah, and working with PE teachers long enough, you would assume that a lot of PE teachers know this stuff like the back of their hand, because it is a big part of lifelong fitness and wellness. But unless they're in kind of a strength conditioning vein outside of school, a lot of this stuff isn't brought up regularly, right? So it's okay that teachers kind of are starting from scratch. It really comes down to, how can I make sure that what I'm giving my kids is realistic? And not just that in PE, but how many of our PE teachers also coach sports? And a lot of states are really doing an amazing job with interscholastic strength conditioning, multi-million-dollar facilities, multiple full-time strength coaches, strength conditioning during the day and stuff like that. We're not there in New York State. We're behind the curve. We're starting to hopefully catch up. But how many teachers also coach? And if you're doing this stuff in phys ed, there's a direct benefit to your athletic programs as well. You're not teaching from scratch in the weight room with your athletes. These are things that they already know. And of course, you can tweak the exercises, volume, intensity, complexity to meet the more sports specific need. But when that foundation of skill development and buy-in is there from phys ed, it's a much smoother transition. And we've seen the benefits firsthand at our district and others that are doing this stuff.
I think we're in, from my perspective, I think we're in a similar situation here in Illinois where we're trying to get to that
Yeah.
point where some of the other states are. But I definitely see progress being made. And to your point, there are, maybe it's because of budgets or whatever else. I mean, it's usually one of the sport coaches that's also teaching PE. And again, they're going off their knowledge. They might not be certified in this area. So I'm definitely going to share all of this information with a lot of people that I know. So hopefully we can keep making progress in that area. So um, I, I know I feel like this has gone fairly fast, but I know that you have a very busy and regimented schedule as an educator within your school. So I want to be respectful of that time, but thank you so much for blocking out a portion of your day to talk about this. I think it really is an important topic for everyone to consider. So everyone listening, if you haven't got your copy yet, definitely pick up your copy of Functional Strength Training for Physical Education. It's on the Human Kinetics website, us.humankinetics.com. I know it's on Amazon now too. A great resource that's going to benefit everyone from PE teachers to coaches to people who are already certified strength coaches. You're going to get something out of it. So thank you so much again. And I will give you the last word here to kind of wrap it up and send everyone on their day.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate your time, Aaron. You guys do amazing things at Human Kinetics. This has been kind of on my brain for several years after seeing the need for this in our PE programs, and the fact that Human Kinetics believed in it is a huge honor because obviously the gold standard. So I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing to push this information out as well. But again, I would go back to there is no excuse from a PE teacher that could really stop them from doing this in their class. Every excuse is outlined in here, and every reason why you should continue to try to implement this is in there as well. I would really say that the person that's going to buy this book is probably going to be the young go-getter of the department that really wants to start seeing this stuff. And I've had a lot of actually veteran teachers on their way out start to come to me with this too, which I think is awesome. Good. But you're going to have to drive the bus, because one of the biggest hurdles is the old school gym teacher that hopefully there's not too many of them out there anymore. But fact is that some people don't like change, and they may be stuck in their ways a bit. So even if you can't get everyone in your department on board, this tool should give you enough ammo and enough direction and guidance to start plugging things in on a small scale to start. And once some of these people that are digging their heels in see it in action and see that it's not this big scary change, is when we see people really make change on more of a district-wide level. And again, like, think about all of the people that we have the ability to impact, right? And if we talk about the importance of strength and then the benefits exclusive to functional strength training, it's up to us to start preaching this to kids, because it really is a something that everyone should be able to do.